with this is I talked to Kim today. I'd like to set this up so that we can have some control over, like, I don't want people just blurting things out. So if you raise your hand and you want to ask a question, let's do it that way. And somebody can moderate it and either ask the question for them. If there's a chat feature, they can put it in the chat. But just try to keep it from a whole free-for-all. And tonight is not the night to debate whether you support or don't support any of this stuff. Tonight is the purpose is to answer questions. Hopefully, so things go a little smoother Saturday, because I think it's not going to be perfect out, but we are going to hold this meeting unless it's pouring out. So first of all, bring a chair, bring an umbrella. Be prepared. It's not going to be wonderful out, but we're going to get it done as best we can unless it's really, really crummy. I see the cat, Cindy.
Yeah, he's gone for the moment.
Is that still a bad omen when a black cat crosses your path? Just
There you go.
He's got a white toenail.
I don't know why I can't see everybody.
Jake,
Lonnie,
can
you're texting me, but I can't read it. What are you telling me?
So everybody should be on mute if you can be, right? And then we're using the raise hand button. We're trying not to use chat because we don't want debate in the chat, right? Anything else?
Real quick. So if you go to the more actions up in your screen with the 3 dots, and then you can click large gallery or the together mode, and you should see everybody with a camera.
All right, so Lonnie, I don't have that. All I have are device settings and meeting details.
Okay, maybe you're using web.
You went through the web.
I thought I had the app on here. Doesn't matter. I'm fine.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Oh my God, this is hilarious. How have we never used this setting before?
I'm going to have to do that. I thought I had the Teams app on here, but I'll have to fix that at some point.
I love it.
This is like the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, really. That's what it's like, the Brady Bunch. All right, the town warrant. I don't think we need to talk about Article 1. It's a standard thing. We just vote not to raise money without cutting it somewhere else. I don't think we need to go through the salaries tonight of employees. I'm not even sure that I talked to Mike about this. Don't want to go through the budget tonight. I had asked Mike when he joins us if there's anything specific, or Kim, maybe you can do this, something that you think is going to bring up a question other than just standard stuff. We could answer those questions. Otherwise, the budget is the budget.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions about the budget. Mike is here too. I can see him in the gallery. If there's any, we've already had a public hearing. The budget's been the budget. So if there are questions, just let me know.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if they use the raise the hand feature, we can get to that stuff. I'll ask one question on Article 3. We're paying a prior bill. Is that just a minor bill that came in late type of thing?
We have multiple. It's the same thing. I don't have the Mike will have the number offhand of the total. I want to say it's 3 bills.
It's a total of $22,595.14.
Okay, so that should be relatively easy. Is anybody here to speak to any of these? Now, am I correct? Article 5 and 6 are being passed over. Is that what I was told?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, let me mark that. We do have consent calendar articles, and I'm not sure where I'm going to take those. They're articles 23, 24, 25, 26, and 35. Don't know how that 35 got out there, but those are the 5 consent calendar ones. There's a citizen's petition about going from 3 to 5 members. I don't know if anybody has questions about that. That's on the that's here. If not, I don't think we need to deal with it. Is there anybody here to talk about any of these zoning changes like Article 8? Jack Hunter has his hand up. Jack, hi, I'm Jay Byers. Nice to meet you.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Do you want me to do a 2-second preface for an intro?
I represent Keller Williams to try to sell the parcel at North Avenue and Milford Street. And in order to get that to a higher and better use, we needed a zone change. So I crafted an age-restricted overlay district, and I'm here to answer anybody's questions.
So that's where I can move when I can't take care of my house anymore and my son takes it away from me.
That's the point. I may be moving there. Who knows? First, we got to get somebody to buy it.
Yeah.
I know that the chair, Bill, from Planning Board is going to make the motion.
Okay. So the one thing we always have challenges with on zoning changes is people like to get up and start amending it because they don't understand stuff. Typically, we have a screen where we can sort of track all that stuff. We're not going to have that. By the way, Kim, did you know that Upton's getting like a Jumbotron for their meeting?
No, really.
Yeah,
Well, that's what happens when you have, $2 million in stabilization.
I guess. Anyway, all right, so that's Article 8. That's basically, so you're saying that's the corner of North Ave and 16 where that house used to be. Correct?
I don't know about, I
No,
don't
it's
know
the
about
town
the
that
house.
across the street from Clough that that they use for parking like for the fair?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not exactly the corner lot because that's still owned by Fino. but
Right.
It's the
That's
piece just
correct.
up from it, and then it kind of goes behind that corner lot
Right.
and then down the hill.
Okay,
It wraps around it. Yeah.
Right, and some of it obviously has a conservation restriction on it. And then there's the piece all the way at the end. But the main piece that I think you're talking about, the entryway is between Chase's house and the corner lot. Yeah, and then once you go past the corner lot, then it opens up to the street. But again, it's not,
okay,
it doesn't have enough, it's not zone commercial far enough. It's only, I think, 100 or 200 feet. And I think this zoning bylaw change would make it, zone it commercial all the way to the back of the lot.
Well, yes and no. I mean, the commercial piece is a minor piece. It's not zoned right now for multifamily, which is technically what we're asking, but in this bylaw, it has to be over 55 multifamily. So that's the nuance.
okay. All right, is there anybody else that has questions on that one? I don't see hands up or anything. I don't know. Daniel, are you sort of monitoring this stuff?
Yeah. I
Okay.
think you're good.
Okay, Article 9 is, it looks like this is to correct typos in a bylaw, is that correct?
So it's two things. It's to fix a couple of bylaws, and it's also to incorporate a few stormwater improvements to the zoning, I believe.
Okay,
It's stuff that was recommended by the state. It's just been,
yeah, that stormwater stuff is fun. Article 10 it says stormwater management, amend the bylaw. So,
same thing, general bylaws instead of zoning.
okay, so it's the same amendments basically, but in two different places.
They're different things, but they're all relative to, basically they went through, analyzed our bylaws and made some recommendations on things that we needed to incorporate to comply with all the state permitting.
Will we have something that sort of explains this to be handed out to voters, or are we just doing this verbally?
I believe all this was being done verbally. All the drafts are posted on the website.
Yeah.
Both
So
of
the
these
only
are
thing-
pretty minor.
Right. The only thing we have to remember is out on that field, the Wi-Fi doesn't exist and cell service is not great at Misco unless you, Verizon's not bad, but everybody else, it's horrible. All right. Article 11 is, says zoning bylaws. Does anybody, I don't know what that is. Anybody have any?
Yeah,
Daniel, are you the expert on all this stuff?
I'm just trying to, I get 300 things open. I
Yeah.
remember what's what.
I can talk on
Yeah,
that one.
yeah.
That's just small tweaks to the open space communities bylaw.
Okay. All right, so I guess what I'm looking for is if you think there's something that's going to be really, going to set people over the edge, which I know it's hard to predict, those are the things we want to make sure we make available for people to understand.
These look
Article
they look to be all planning articles anyway, so I would imagine there's going to be a planning board member there to speak to all of these changes.
Yeah, I hope so. Okay. Article 12 is the means tested property tax thing. I know Kevin's here. That's probably in his wheelhouse.
Elena is going to introduce it and I'll be there for questions. But basically, it's asking the state legislature to approve a home rule petition that would let us establish a means tested senior citizen exemption.
Okay, and Elena's got her hand up. Is that just because you're going to speak to it or do you have a question?
No, Elena is the chairman of the committee and should be explaining it.
Okay, well, she's got her hand up right now. That's why I'm saying, is there something
Right.
that,
Well, I didn't know if you wanted me to introduce it now or just I think.
No, it's just basically answer questions if they come up. If people are watching and want to ask questions, this would be the place to do it. I quite honestly, I don't see. And there's like, what, how many people here? 20? 28. Okay. All right. Well, I guess we'll move on then. Article 13 is, Lonnie, I'll let you speak to that. You're a select person.
This is maybe Ann Mazar as well, if she's still on the call. This is the pond.
Yeah.
If somebody's got music, I'm gonna mute you.
Yeah. Before we go on, if you're on this call, can you please mute yourself in any way, shape, or form, and we'll bring you up if you want to ask a question, but we don't need the background noise, just distracts everybody.
I can briefly explain it, unless you want to, Dan.
I was gonna say, if you're on a phone, dial *6 to mute and unmute yourself. Okay.
Basically, this is a subdivision, an open space subdivision where open space was given to the town, but then the developer encroached on the open space. And so they want to buy the land back. And it's a small portion, but it's complicated because it's under Article 97, and it's not necessarily something the town's recommending. It's what the developer wants to do. So
Okay.
they can explain it. It's kind of their mistake.
All right.
So hold on, Ann, this is the Alfonso project?
Exactly.
Okay.
Where
Yes,
is this
right.
one located? Does it say?
Off
Off of
of
George
George.
Street.
Off
Yeah.
of George.
It was a former Cox property.
Okay.
And it's actually a lovely location, but this kind of came up when we were doing the conservation restriction.
All right. The next one, Article 14, is 52 Providence Street. I don't know.
Bill, do you want to just explain it?
Yep. Hi, everybody. So this is required basically declaration of allowing a change of usage to be used for the 3.2 acres to be used for affordable housing purposes, and it requires a select board vote and a town meeting vote.
And this is the property down by the senior center, correct?
That's correct. 3.2 acres out of the 75.
And the the select board approved it. The land use committee did, community preservation did, planning board. I can't remember, but many committees have been involved with this. But now it has to come to town meeting.
Okay. Taking notes. All right. Article 15, the one that everybody's can't wait to deal with, is the school override. So if there's questions on that, I know the superintendent, Dr. Maruschek's here, the assistant superintendent, Dr. Cohen is here. I'm here. Sean Nicholson is here, who's on school committee. If anybody has questions they want to bring up, we can deal with them now. This is not the time to tell us that you're against it or for it, just to answer questions. Maybe the town meeting will go this smoothly too. All right. Nobody's got any questions?
I'll just add, for the sake of the recording, there's a recording of a school committee meeting that's on their channel that I think has a bunch of presentations. If people are looking for information, that's where to go find it.
Yeah, well, that's there. Yeah, on the district's website under budget and finances, all of our budget materials. On the YouTube channel is all the meetings, so you can see all of those things.
And Jay?
Yes.
This is Mike Morale, the FinCom chair. We just wrapped up a meeting that was recorded, which will be up on YouTube for anybody that wants to listen to the FinCom's deliberation about what our recommendation is and why we voted the way we did. But that'll be available. I'm assuming it'll come up sometime later tonight or tomorrow.
You want to share how you voted?
Ultimately, the school committee, the FinCom voted not to recommend the override, but it was mixed concerns. It was not a unanimous vote. But the concern is that, to summarize it, we had a big override 5 years ago. You know, we were told we were gonna have to come up with an override every 5 years. We had a small one last year that kind of is considered to be, this is part of that. But the concern was that it was just too much at one time. But at the same time, you know, the idea that no new money was put into the school budget to increase over where we were last year after the override was concerning. We felt like the town is at one extreme and the school committee is at the other, and we wished it was somewhere in between. It would have been good if when we had the budget subcommittee meeting and there was a discussion about kind of renegotiating and lowering the ask, it would have been more palatable. But ultimately, we voted for financial purposes not to support the override as a committee.
Okay, so just for everyone, so that everyone understands, logistically, that means that at the town meeting, the school committee will be making that motion, not the finance committee, and then we'll go to the finance committee for a recommendation. Again, so everyone knows as well, I've asked Kevin to moderate that question so that I can speak to it. We have a little bit of a dilemma as far as timing because Upton's town meeting is at the same time as ours. They're starting an hour earlier, but so both the superintendent and assistant superintendent are going to try and get over to our meeting as soon as they finish in Upton. But in the meantime, school committee and myself will be available to answer some questions. Just another side note, I have a little over under with the town manager in Upton that we're going to finish before them, even though they're starting an hour earlier. So I want everyone to keep that in mind. All right, so any other questions related to the school override? If not, Article 16 is, I'm not sure we need to run through some of these. This is for tree warden stuff. Is this something new or is this just like, is this a big expense that's out of the ordinary? Anybody?
Well, it is a bigger expense than what we normally do, but I think it's important to understand that because we did not have a fall town meeting and we didn't have, you know, the usual distribution of free cash that's certified in the fall, some of those articles are on here now. This is one of them, so it's certainly bigger than what we would ever do at an annual. It's part of the yearly issue of needing to you know, remove trees around town that just needs to get done. So it wasn't done in the fall, so now we're doing it here.
Okay. 17 is a truck with a plow for the highway department. I'm not going to speak for Alan, but I can tell you I believe this is probably long overdue. I think the truck he's using is like a Flintstones truck that you kind of put your feet through the bottom and make it go. I could be wrong, but it seems like, is there anybody else that has any comments on that?
Sure, real quick, there's kind of a truck swap going on with this. The better truck that's at the worst truck is at the fire department. So the highway department has one it's like middle of the road. They're going to ship that to the fire department, and the highway department will get the new truck because the fire department doesn't use, it doesn't get as much use as the highway department truck.
So this isn't a pickup truck though. This is a big plow truck, correct?
No, it actually it is. What's going on is there is a truck that the fire department uses rather than taking the rescue or bigger apparatus out. They have a hand-me-down truck they had gotten from fire from years ago, and it's past its useful life. It won't pass inspection. So what they're doing is highway has a newer truck. They have a utility body on it. It used to have a box or pickup body, and they still have that. So they're taking the utility body off, putting it on a new truck with a plow, and then they're taking that truck they're using, putting the pickup box back on the back of it and giving that to the fire department. It's the best. We deliberated this for a long time, and it's the best use of the funds. And we simply can't. Fire needs the truck, and this is the cheapest way to make it all happen.
Okay. 18. I'm looking to see for questions. Daniel, interrupt me if I don't see something. 18 is the fleet radios for the highway department. So the string in the cup's not working anymore. We have to actually go to some kind of modern technology. Let's see, 19 town hall improvements. I'll let Kim maybe speak to this one.
Sure, this is for the painting of the town hall.
Okay, exterior, correct?
Correct.
Okay. 20 is putting money in stabilization. 21 is putting money in CapEx account. Those are things that we do on a standard basis, right?
Yes. Again, these are things that would normally be done, you know, in the fall, and we didn't have the free
Correct.
cash yet, so we're doing it now.
Right, yeah, because if anybody that was there, our town meeting in the fall was the fastest meeting in the history of town meetings. I think it took 2 minutes.
Right.
All right, 22, OPEB, same kind of thing. It's just funding the OPEB account. Correct? How much?
Yes, that's correct.
Actually, it doesn't matter right now.
So how about 113, Jay? 130 in there currently.
Okay. Do we take out of that every year to help fund some of those costs, or are we just trying to build up a reserve?
No, it's just a contribution towards the liability that we have, so that when we go to do our bond and credit ratings, that we can show that we're making an effort towards addressing that liability, though we'll never actually hit it.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, 23 through 26 are consent calendar, so I don't think we even need to go through those. We vote on them every year. They're standard motions. 27 is to operate the Water Enterprise Fund. Does one of our water people want to speak to that a little bit?
I'll defer to Dan Byer.
So this is just because the water department is now set up with an enterprise fund. We're essentially like a mini budget within the budget. So we have our own article to vote on our own expenditures. The bottom line is it's now completely self-funded. So all the expenses are paid by the revenue by the water customers. The only cost to the town outside of this is 10 grand for the hydrants and the cost for the town's buildings, which is not part of this, but.
Okay. All right. Still looking for questions and I'm not seeing any. 828 is to set the limit on spending for these various revolving funds, and I assume these limits are all pretty much the same. Is there any changes from previous years? Kim, I see Kim saying no, so I'll go with that. 29, CPA. This is pretty standard too. It's just taking the money we collected and setting it into the various different buckets that are in CPA, correct?
There's one change. Some people might notice that this normally is done in November after what happened last year, and we had to have that town meeting just to vote on CPA. We discussed with the town accountant and found out we can do this at the annual meeting. So this will now be on the annual meeting, but it is the same thing we vote on every year.
So that's 2 minutes out of our life last November we're not getting back. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Okie dokie. Article 30, this is to pay the affordable housing coordinator. Is that right, Ann?
Yep.
So that's a pretty standard thing as well. What can we do
Yes.
these things as consent calendar? Cindy still on?
I'll just chime in. Yes, we had a debate a couple years ago that we couldn't because it was funding a salary because we wanted to add it then and we didn't add it then. And I don't know.
All right.
Cindy, that's right. It's about 4 years ago. I think we
Yeah.
talked about it, maybe 3.
Doesn't take long, so I'm just curious.
You can add a lot of things to consent that you may want to consider adding in the future.
So I would say then that maybe next year when we put together an annual warrant, maybe we can review these things and determine what should be consent and not. It just speeds things up a little bit if it's the standard thing. I mean, they're generally, to do a general motion and pass it is, a couple of minutes, but if we have a big warrant. All right, so what was I up to? 29, 30 is the coordinator, 31 is to use CPA money to pay for the debt exclusion for the police station. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. 32 is CPA to pay for the Pheno land. Is that the last payment? Is that what?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, the debt will be paid now.
Mhm.
All right. 33 is for site improvements in the various cemeteries around town. Is that correct?
Yep.
Is it something we haven't done in the past or should have done?
So these are, I guess, like major repairs that need to get done. Unfortunately, we talked about tree warden before. There's tree issues in pretty much all of them. You can see like in the center of town, the stone walls falling down. So it's historic restoration, basically to preserve these things that are starting to just deteriorate with age.
So this will be inside family humor. Daniel, we can't do this with duct tape.
I don't think so.
34 is CPA for beach drainage. So Daniel, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, so at the previous meeting, we had approved funding for engineering. This is now the funding to do the initial work. I've been talking to Alan with the highway department. They're going to actually help us out and do a ton of it. They're going to install curbing, redo the drainage, basically to stop runoff problems we're having. There's also a separate project to improve some access to the lake for the fire department. But this is the next step in getting the beach cleaned up.
Bonnie, you got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I just, as far as the consent calendar, Cindy had mentioned that we can add a bunch of these to it. I don't think there would be anything stopping us this year from adding it to it, right? It's not like these are written as consent calendar on the warrant. So just wondering if we could maybe come up with a list, not right now, but even
Right.
before Saturday.
Yeah, Cindy, if you want to go through you've got the warrant there, go through it and send me an email and say, these are the ones I think you can do consent calendar, and then we can add them to it. I'm not against that. I mean, I don't particularly want to be out there for 4 hours Saturday. And if there's stuff we could, expedite so we can get to the stuff that's going to get discussed, that would be to our benefit.
That's fine.
So I'll let, maybe you can work on that, contact, Kim and myself and Ellen, since we're the ones that really have to deal with it. 35 is part of the consent calendar. 36 is a bylaw change for land use planning. Is that correct?
Yes, it's just to add an alternative member to the land use committee.
Okay. 37 is, you're gonna have to forgive my dogs now. We're having a little play date behind me. 79 Millville Street. So I don't know what.
It's
Let's put money
housekeeping.
back.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's easy. 8 is restore historical documents for the Historical Society with CPA money. Correct?
Yes.
39 is some borders and things on Inman Hill.
Yes. It's surveying so we can mark the borders between some open space properties and neighbors.
And 40 is related to George Street by the Gaskill Meadows. Same kind of thing.
Similar. Yep. Just so that we know where encroachment's happening and people know where their boundaries are.
Okay. So I guess my only other question related to this is we need all of these motions, and everything's going to be on paper. Does everybody know who's making what motions? Mike, are you preparing all of the motions for everybody to use, or are other people preparing their own motions?
Kim and I have discussed it, and one way between the two of us, we will have 2 copies of motions printed, one to give to you and then one obviously for the different people to read. I would just ask that anybody who is responsible for a motion just add Kim and I on the email so that we get their verbiage. And
okay, yeah.
unless you have a desire that you want to take it, but I have no problem doing that, taking care of it.
In the past, what we've done is that every group that was making a motion sent all their motions to us in advance so that we could have one document and that we could give that one document to Jay so that it was organized. I think especially because we are not going to be using electronics, one set of documents for all of us is probably the way to go. So if you can send me what you have ASAP, I will get it to Jay as soon as I get them all. That's what we'll do.
So they need to be printed in this case, so you can just bring it Saturday. You don't have to send them to me ahead of time. It would be better if I can get a stack of however many motions there are, where we got 30, 40 of them. If I can get all 40 in one stack so I don't have to chase people. Just so everyone knows, logistically, I've been going back and forth on how we're going to set up outside on Saturday. And depending on how far we can be for power for the sound system, I would like to set up so that all of us are on tables on the track, like starting from the 50-yard line and spreading out, so people will be out on the field in between the goalposts. If we can't do that because it's too long a run for the power, then we have to set up by the concession stand and go out the other direction. But I would prefer to do it from the 50-yard line, so to speak, just because I think it's a better setup for us. So I have to talk to Dan Fleury about what he needs for power, because there's a couple of sources, the school or the concession stand. We're going to have a speaker mic, probably just one, maybe two, depending on how we go and how many people show up. People are going to have to come to the microphone to speak, and they're going to have to speak loud and clear so that we don't have muffled, nobody can hear type of things. He's going to bring a sound system that will project, you know, a couple of layers of sound as far as speakers. Ellen's got her hand up.
Yeah, I just want to say to Kim, if you could forward me the motions as well. I know you're going to print them out, or I can print them out for Jay as well. But I like to write on them to make notes on my copy. So if you could send those to me via email, that'd be great.
Cindy has her hand up.
I literally have my hand up. I can't seem to find my hand raising function on this.
It's a little hand in the screen that looks like this.
I know what it looks like, but I'm just not seeing it on here. At any rate, you found me. If possible, I wouldn't mind seeing a copy of them in advance also in case there are any inconsistencies or problems. And the other thing is it worth, or is it possible, in light of the lack of electronics, that if people could get them to you before Friday, that you can at least post them on the website for people to see?
Well, they could, but the warrant's there, and that basically has all, it just doesn't have the dollar amounts. If we could post it online, that'd be great. I agree. And Daniel had said this to me at another time. If people have the ability to access this stuff, say on their phones, and they do have a connection that's good enough that they can get it, that will help people kind of visualize things for those people that really need to see it in writing instead of just hearing it. We don't have Wi-Fi out there, I know that, but I haven't gone up there to see what kind of real cell service we have. I think it's sketchy at best.
I put it in the chat. mendonma.gov/ATM is the direct link, so we can put everything in one place. Hopefully that will be helpful.
Okay.
So send me whatever. We'll post anything.
Is there any other questions from anybody related to this town meeting that I've missed? Because I actually thought we were going to be here way longer than this, and I don't want to like go away until we've spent some good quality time together.
Jay, I would just ask, once you're all done, if the FinCon could please stay on this call so we can officially adjourn and review our meeting minutes, because we went off the other one. So.
All right, FinCon members, hopefully you heard all of that. Am I missing anything? Anybody? Bueller? All right, well, hopefully we'll get through this meeting nice and smooth and efficiently. Hopefully we'll get a good turnout. I don't know yet. I know there's some youth sports things going on that may conflict with it. But like I said, unless it's, unless we get up, I think we wait till Saturday to determine if we actually hold this outside. And if it's raining steady, heavy, then I think we're going to have to go to the 15th. But if it's not, I think we just do the best we can to hold the meeting.
Dan, how will you announce if it's postponed?
I'm going to be out there on the field and tell people when they come, I think. We can post it online, but I think, we could do a code red call, I suppose. We'd probably make the call by 9 or 9:30. I'm going to be out there a little after 8, so, but I don't think it's going to rain. I think we're going to be okay. That's my feeling, and I do have a good history of predicting the weather about as well as the weathermen do. So why are you shaking your head, Kim? You don't trust me? It's a good thing she's muted because you don't know what she's really saying.
About the weather, Jeff? Of course I do. Of course. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I think we're going to be fine. That's my feeling. So let's go with that. All right. I keep asking any other questions. Okay. Everybody kept telling me they were going to come and ask thousands of questions, and I really haven't gotten any. So I'm assuming we're going to be good, and this is going to go just as quickly at the town meeting.
It will. It will.
You know, the only other thing I was thinking is if we were allowed to drink at a town meeting, we could have like every time Mr. Maroli says, Mr. Moderator, you didn't get a FinCom rep, everybody could take a drink. We'd all be hammered within an hour.
Or if every time you tell a joke, Jay.
Yeah, that doesn't happen often. You know, I'm a pretty serious guy when I'm moderating.
Ah,
I just want to say thank you to everybody that's on this call. A lot of work goes into town meeting, and I say it every year, but it's true. We all scramble in these last couple of minutes to get this done, and it really, you know, it's a lot of people involved, and it takes a lot of effort, and so I appreciate it. And I know the town, maybe they don't come out and see it, but you know, we're here putting it in, and so I appreciate all of you for it.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think the people in town in general, you know, I shouldn't say this generalizing, but there's a lot of work that goes into the town budget and the efficiencies the town tries to do to make the town government not cost as much. I know not everybody believes this, but we actually do the same as in the school side. I mean, if you knew the things that I did to try and save money, you know, that would make a difference, maybe or maybe not. But I also understand everybody's concerns about money in general. So those are the things that we have to deal with as we move forward. All right, well, if that's it, then I think we're good to go. And I will see everybody Saturday morning, bright and early. Maybe the sun will come out and we'll have a nice day. That's what I was hoping for.
Thank you, Jay.
FinCom people, stay on for Mike, and I'm going to sign off, and I'll see you all Saturday.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Excellent. Gene, can you email those notes? I think we have just the last meeting to approve. Not, obviously not tonight, but the previous one, right?
Mike, can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, so I emailed the minutes to everyone just before the 5:30 meeting. You should all have them by now.
Okay.
Chair? May
Yes.
I just ask a point of clarification here?
Sure.
And this is obviously in connection with your canvassing for some comments back, Mike, summarizing sort of the consensus here. And I thought you did a great job, Mr. Chair, on sort of summing it up for that last meeting. Would the Finance Committee's recommendation, you know, traditionally be sort of like along sort of three possibilities, you know, a favorable recommendation, an unfavorable recommendation, and I know here we pursued a path of passing over. I'm just wondering here if it is that, do we believe sort of as a committee and just sort of procedurally, Mr. Chairman, is that the correct outcome here for a passover as opposed to an unfavorable recommendation on the warrant article as drafted? Because I almost wonder if that really is more or less consistent with sort of the view of the committee that the ask, frankly, was sort of outside of parameters of what we would be comfortable with. The notion that there was obviously a failure to compromise here, unfortunately, between, you know, the bid and the ask between the town and the school committee. So I'm just kind of wondering if perhaps the recommendation of the Finance Committee should be unfavorable as to this article as drafted by way of the 3-2 as opposed to passing over. I'm just asking the question, Mr. Chair. That's all.
Yeah, well, the answer is that with each warrant article, you know, somebody is responsible for putting it on there, and the you know, the various ways it can get is any elected member of the community, any, you know, elected official can put something on the warrant. And you know, in this case, you know, the school committee made the ask, and the select board decided to put it on there because obviously it has to be funded somehow because they certified a budget. So the budget that they certified has to be voted on. Now, obviously, it's not all in our budget. That's why, and it's over the 2.5, so it has to go before a vote before the townspeople. Anything else, if we as a committee would recommend it, then we always make the motion. If we vote to pass over it, we pass over it. But at any time, the actual elected official that wanted to put that on the warrant and wanted it to go could do. For instance, let's say it was the one with the with the paint. If we hadn't decided we were going to amend it so that it was just for the paint or something to the surface and not all of the other site work, if we had just voted to pass over it, then the select board could make that motion. So in this case, what we don't, it's digital. It's either yes or no. We can't.
Yeah, and I guess that's really what I sort of was driving at. I wonder if hypothetically, if the school committee chair were to, for example, take to the town meeting floor and recommend favorable action, and then I guess it sounds like it may very well be the moderator at that juncture were to ask the chair of the finance committee for a recommendation at that point. Would the appropriate response at that point, based on the vote we just took here, be the finance committee recommends passing over,
No.
or in fact an unfavorable recommendation on the article?
Well, I would argue that in my experience, and I did some research on this, what we need to do is, our role as the finance committee is, we're supposed to do the research and make recommendation to the townspeople. In other words, we're supposed to spend the time, do exactly what we're doing right now, so that we can give a Reader's Digest condensed version of what's gone on over the last several months with this. The idea of passing over or recommending, just like what we do for a lot of the land bank ones, because it's a fairly uncomplicated, straightforward thing. The $2,000 is yes or no. What our job is ultimately to make an informed recommendation or opinion to the townspeople.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
including, I think, making them understand, what are the consequences of this. In other words, make a recommendation and then explain why we're recommending what we did. And then ultimately it's the town people that decide. And then once we make our recommendation, then the moderator entertains, a discussion, and everybody can weigh in on it.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to speak over Ms. Motta.
No, sorry.
There's a little delay here on the broadcast.
You got to pull the string tighter, Jack.
I got to get closer, I guess. So I'm just kind of wondering, but please, perhaps I could get some help here from Jean and the rest of the team here. I think the motion that we entertained earlier tonight was a motion to pass over, as opposed to a motion for unfavorable as opposed to a motion for an unfavorable recommendation. That's my point. So I would almost think that if I'm sitting at town meeting, am I going to be sort of scratching my head saying, what exactly are you recommending, Finance Committee? Are you recommending that we move to pass over, or are you recommending unfavorable on the article as drafted? And I think it's the latter. I think it's unfavorable on as drafted is I think where we I think need to be. I don't think we can middle it with pass over. I think
The vote was to pass over.
move to pass over the article. The sponsor can. I don't think the finance committee can move to pass over an article.
Well, again, and that's why we actually, I guess what I'm saying is, for any other article that we would pass over, the only reason we would do it is for brevity's sake. The moderator has always, anything to do with finances, the FinCom makes the recommendation and it makes the motion and then the recommendation. It's a matter of convenience. In this case, they want the article on there. So we're not going to be the ones that actually, in other words, we can't make a motion and second to vote on the article and then say that we're voting to pass over it. We would have to make a motion to pass over if we were going to be allowed to make the motion. So what's going to happen is the select board they're the ones that put it on the warrant.
Yeah.
And they're deferring, rather than deferring to us, they're deferring to the school committee to make the motion. And then
I'm with you. There's a binary. I think what you're describing here is really a binary process. One, who is the movement behind the article? That's number
Correct.
one. And what you're describing makes complete sense to me. Since we are not going to recommend favorable action on it, we're not going to be the movement, which means we need someone else to take the floor to do that. It's probably, I'm guessing, going to be perhaps the chair of the school committee, perhaps somebody else is going to be the movement. The second piece of the binary analysis, though, I think is when you get asked as the chair, what is the recommendation of the finance committee as to the motion now made on the floor? I don't think we can say pass over. I think we have to say unfavorable. That's my point.
Oh, well, right, because it's not right. I mean, actually passing over an unfavorable, whether we recommend to pass over it, meaning vote no, or unfavorable, meaning vote no, it's a distinction without a difference. Because we're not taking an action, we're making a recommendation.
Yeah,
I think, though, in previous years, and it has nothing to do with the schools, we have passed over articles related to community preservation, even though they were funding articles, because we either didn't have enough time, information, or we couldn't come to consensus on the article. So we passed over, and the person from community preservation had to do it. And we were asked, do we have a recommendation? And we did not have a recommendation. I think it was like we voted to pass over it because we don't have a recommendation.
Right.
I recall we have done that. I do understand what you're saying, Jack, is that we voted in the meeting to pass over it. And that means that somebody else has to initiate the ask. And then if we're asked what our opinion is or what our recommendation is, we don't have one.
Mike, can I jump in here for a second?
Absolutely, Mike.
Let's back up a little bit. When that article is announced, the first, Jay's going to ask right away for the finance committee to make a recommendation, correct?
No. What Jay is going to bring up is, in this case, I think it's Article 14 or 15. 15. So he's going to say, do I have a motion on Article 15? And then presumably somebody's going to make a motion and second it.
Right. It won't be us.
It won't be us.
Right.
Correct. And then at that point, he's going to ask for a finance committee recommendation.
So when
I'm going to make the recommendation that, our recommendation is to vote pass over, vote no.
That will get seconded. We'll second that, and then
No,
we'll take a vote.
We're not going to be seconding it. We've already done that.
If you make a motion to pass over.
Oh, I'm not going to make a motion to pass over. No.
Then we have to act on it.
Right. I'm not making a motion to pass over. What's happening is there's one of two things. We can make a motion to pass over, procedurally. But in this case, in other words, rather than me making a motion to pass over and seconding it and then voting, and then somebody calling to make an amendment to the motion and amending to go ahead and vote for the motion, and then going through that whole process, Jay's recommendation was that we have somebody else make the motion, because what will happen is, you know, that they have to ask for, listening and entertain the finance committee's recommendation. And then what I will do is explain the vote and give a summary of what it is that everybody discussed, of what our feelings were and why we recommended the way that we did. And then ultimately in that discussion, any one of the committee, the finance committee, or anybody else in the room can actually debate in it. And ultimately the people have to vote.
Well, then I'm going to refer back to Jack's question, is now, I think Jack hit on something there. We, as the committee, voted to pass over.
That's our recommendation.
Right. We're going to be asked for a recommendation. So
Yeah.
I believe what Jack was alluding to is we have to take another vote to either say, yes, we support, or nay, we don't support the override.
Well, no, I
We
think the
took
vote.
motion to pass over that question.
Well, I think I believe the vote was to not recommend it. I mean, I know we said pass over, but what we mean is we're not recommending the override. It's the same thing.
Well, I
But
get,
I'm fine however you wanna, if somebody wants to revisit it and,
yeah,
go
Mike,
over the language further, I'm fine with that.
yeah, Mr. Chair, Mike Amendolia hit the nail on the head here. That's exactly what I'm saying is that I think that the Finance Committee reasonably will be asked for our position on the article as drafted, exclusive of who the movement is on the town meeting floor,
Yes,
who is, behind the article, who's going to move for the article to be put forward. So procedurally, it sounds like, this could very well be the school committee chair who gets up there and says, I so move Article 15 to raise and appropriate, etc. At which point, I do think Jay Byer, or not Jay Byer, it sounds like the moderator, the pinch hitter now, is someone's pinch hitting for Jay, is going to turn to you and say, what say you, chair of the finance committee? And I think we should, as a committee, come flat out and say unfavorable on this article based on the 3-2 vote. And then you, it seems to me, Mr. Chair, would have an opportunity to amplify on why it's unfavorable. It's unfavorable, and I think you did a very good job describing it in the last meeting. It's unfavorable because in our view, unfortunately, as drafted, the ask is higher than we believe the town can afford. And unfortunately, there was an inability to reach a compromise underneath that number. And I think that that's really sort of the consensus as I heard it here from the group. I don't want to speak for the entire committee, and I won't, but I think that's really what occurred here.
I agree. I think the only question is, I think is you're asking, when I'm originally asked, what's our recommendation? You want me to be able to say we voted to not recommend, right? Not to say we voted to pass over.
I think it should be actually, my recommendation, Mr. Chairman, would be more, I think we should be more emphatic, and I think we owe it to the town meeting to be more emphatic, to say unfavorable and use the word unfavorable and then tell the town why. I think it's important that we draw a line in the sand because frankly, I think procedurally pass over or not reckon or coming at it in sort of a circuitous way, suggest that we, or could suggest that we have some doubt about either the vote or our position. The vote is 3-2. As I hear it, it's unfavorable as drafted. And sadly, it's unfavorable as drafted through the inability between the town and the school committee to reach an appropriate compromise. That's what I think has happened here.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we discussed, and that's exactly what I'm going to say.
So I guess in light of all this, I would ask if I would put forward a motion here that that we as a committee, when asked, when the chair is asked, that we would offer an unfavorable recommendation on Article 15, and cite as the reason, therefore, unfortunately, we believe this is in excess of what the town can reasonably afford, and unfortunately, it was not subject to what we believe to be a reasonable compromise. So as drafted, unfavorable recommendation, and that would be my motion.
I'll second that.
All those in favor of that?
Nick, aye.
Nick, aye.
Mike Amendolia, aye.
In favor of, what am I voting for exactly? I'm sorry. I
was going to say the same thing.
I think it's, again, as I said, I think we're still in the same place that we were at the end of before we went over to the other meeting. But I think Jack is just using the word unfavorable and explaining why, which is what I'm going to do.
And I think
but it's not a bad thing to have this kind of emotion. It's obviously more complicated than we usually do, because it makes it clear that the entire committee's on the same page. And what I'm going to do is, well, again, it was a 3-2 vote.
Yeah, I think
right.
Heather,
I was one, and the thing is, Norm's not here either,
Right.
right? And he took place in the other vote, which I think is a little bit. I understand he wasn't on that meeting or didn't stay on, is a little bit problematic because it sort of skews the number, right?
Yeah, Heather, I apologize because I when I looked at the bottom here, I thought he was still on the call.
I don't believe he's on.
Well, either way, I still argue that, nothing has changed. I mean, we still voted 3-2 to recommend
To
unfavorably.
Passover.
Yeah. Well, I would argue if you listen, and that's why it's nice to have other recording, because what we actually, I mean, we voted not to recommend the town pass the article as written. That's what Passover means.
Mm-hmm.
But not voting on it is the same thing as voting no.
Mike?
I think, I mean, I understand kind of procedurally, Mike, but I think I understand what Jack is saying. He wants to make it very clear to the townspeople that it wasn't that we didn't have time to consider it, or that he wants, and I'm not speak for you, Jack, but I think what you're saying is you want to make it very clear what the finance committee's point of view is on this versus something that may be considered more subtle.
Yeah, I do think we need to sort of say up or down, and anyone who's in sitting town meeting knows that the finance committee, when they're there, they know the finance committee said this is making an unfavorable recommendation, and this is the reason. I fear that someone could misconstrue the notion of Passover as precisely what you put your finger on, Nick, is a lack of information. That is, we're suggesting that the town punt essentially on this because we don't have a sufficient level of information. We need to be emphatic here because I think that there's at least some risk that someone could misconstrue this as being, not taking a stand on this. And as a matter of fact, I think, quite frankly, the more emphatic we are, perhaps, and people understand the more emphatic we are, perhaps that may, persuade the players here to reconsider their position and seek a compromise in advance.
Okay.
So, with Norm not here, I think I don't think it would be fair because I assumed he was tall. I don't think it would be fair unless folks think otherwise to really, sort of quote unquote revote but I do think even perhaps before we convene, Mr. Chair, maybe it would be a good idea to even, sort of, or I guess what I could suggest, I mean, if folks think I'm not trying to cause problems, I'm actually trying to prevent them. If that was the intention of the chair all along, that the, the quote unquote Passover was unfavorable, I accept that, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I just want to make sure that the record is clear that the 3-2 vote was, unfavorable as to drafted, and the reason for it, you obviously amplified at the prior meeting, which was, it's beyond the ability of the town to afford it. And,
and that is exactly the point. And I think when I started to explain, and when Jay went on to talk about what was going on, was that we were not going to make the motion. They were going to ask us for a recommendation. And our recommendation, obviously, maybe I used the word pass over, but obviously the motion was already made and seconded, so it wasn't passed over at that point. Will not be able to be passed over at that point in the meeting. My recommendation is that or our recommendation was to recommend an unfavorable action because of what you just, rather than say it all over again. But,
great. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, and I think unfavorable could be in terms of the approach that both parties took. Unfavorable could be the amount, right? So there are different things, right? I may support an override that was less, or if there's a lot of different moving parts.
Exactly.
And that as it stands right now, I personally wish there was more compromise and a little less gamesmanship with quoting the earlier meeting, right?
I think.
Oh shoot, I'm supposed to be in another meeting, so.
Well, let me just say this quickly before you go, that when I was at the budget subcommittee meeting, I don't think were you on that one that day? All right. When I went on a budget subcommittee meeting, I made the statement that if they, because they were going to consider at their total meeting, at their total school committee meeting the next night, to recertify at a lower number. And I did communicate to them that, and I had been told the select board's opinion was that they were not going to go there. They were not going to, we level funded it, that was it. But I look at this, and even the money that we put into OPEB, we used to put, very small amount, less than what we put in this time. We're putting money into stabilization that maybe we didn't need to. The point is, we could have moved things around, and we might have been able to fund something similar to what we did last year without any kind of an override. And of course, the other thing to keep in mind, which we really didn't get into, there are one-time monies that are now available, and even this last round of stimulus that the federal government has offered, they haven't even released the rules yet. I spoke with somebody in our congressman's office, and she said the rules for how the money can be spent are actually being released next week. And there's a piece of it that is discretionary and a piece of it that has to go to the school. So it may be very well, if they compromised, we'll be able to, as a town, do that anyways. But what's clear is this $803,000 number in one fell swoop at one time is not something we can absorb any way at all without an override. We can't do it, and I don't think we should. And I think it's like any other household. You got to live within your means, and I'm not sure that that well, everybody has to make a decision for themselves when it comes to the vote, all the townspeople. But, I guess my point is, this is not the end of it, because, they certified it, and if we don't pass it and they don't get the budget, that I don't see them, they're going to go back and have to recertify at a different number and come back to us again,
Yeah. I'm in complete agreement, and I know, Heather, I know you need to run, but I do think that the one-time stimulus money could be used for counseling, and hopefully that counseling would not be needed as full-time FTEs kind of year over year, that we're able to kind of get post-pandemic, use counseling for maybe a year or two to kind of help transition students back from virtual to in classroom, and not look at it as kind of bringing on additional FTEs forever, or maybe something that maybe is more of a temporary situation. And those are the kinds of thinking that I would like to have seen out of this, as well as more compromise from both the selectmen and the school committee, which in my mind didn't happen.
I would agree with that statement. I think that reflects the sentiment of multiple people on this finance committee for Mendon, that as it stands right now, the number is too high and not affordable, and that had there been any movement on either side, that we would be in a little bit different position.
Yeah. Perhaps we tried.
Perhaps.
Yeah. And we tried, but it was ultimately in the lap of the school committee to make a decision. And they did, in fairness, they did have a meeting of the budget subcommittee, and they actually made that recommendation. But the whole school committee as a whole voted not to. And also, as I said, and what's interesting is, our counterparts in Upton, while they did recommend the $1 million piece to go into their budget, their finance committee is recommending unfavorable passage of the extra money being taken out of the free cash. So they have a similar sentiment that we do, as they did the very first night when we had a joint meeting with them and talked about it. I remember the Upton FinCom's chair said, he said, I need to know what the real number is. That was what he said that night. And, but the school committee said the real number is what we're telling you right now. And they said, okay, well, then the answer is no.
That's right. Exactly.
But their selectmen, their select board, split the baby. Ours didn't.
Yeah, but we don't have that. People are asking where I am, so I do have to go.
All right.
I apologize.
Can I just take a vote to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, everybody. We'll take care of the minutes later. Thank you all very much.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.